of attendees. I just need to let this buffer for just a moment. I'm going to turn off some of the participants' video feeds here. Okay, everything is green. It looks good. I'll turn it over to you, Madam Chair. The meeting is yours. Let me know if you need anything.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josephine Spencer, and I'd like to welcome you to the White Lake Zoning Board of Appeals. This board is a quasi-judicial board, which consists of 5 members. In order for your variance to be granted, you must receive a majority vote from the full board. In order for this board to grant a variance, you must prove a hardship or practical difficulty exists. Unfortunately, personal hardships of financial concerns will not be considered by this board. If your variance is granted, you have 6 months in which to pull the required permits, or your variance will expire and you must reappear before this board. If your variance is denied, you have the right to appeal this decision. By state statute, you must appeal to the circuit court, and you have 30 days in which to file an appeal. There is no other township board that can overrule this decision. All cases will be heard in the order in which they appear on the agenda. I will call the case, staff will give their review, and the proponent will have 20 minutes in which to speak. The board will then ask questions of the proponent, and the public will then ask questions of the proponent, and the public hearing will then be over. Each member of the public who wishes to speak will have 3 minutes in which to do so. If you are representing a group of homeowners associations, you have 5 minutes to speak. However, no other individuals from this group will then be recognized to speak. After the public hearing is closed, the proponent will then have 5 minutes to address any concerns, a motion, and then a roll call vote. And with that, may we have a roll call, please, Hannah?
Yep. DeHart.
Here.
Powell.
Here.
Shellac.
Present.
Sieber.
Here.
Spencer.
Here.
Here.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag. Yeah, I did.
America, and to the republic for which it stands.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty, justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I have one correction on the agenda.
Okay,
On page, I'm trying to find this here. It's on the top of page 8, the first line, in the vote section.
I think you're jumping ahead a little bit, Nick.
Yeah, I think that's the minutes.
that's the minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I thought you said a motion. Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. Mike
okay.
missed it. I had a root canal a few hours ago, so I'm cranking at about 90% here.
Oh,
My
Madam Chairman,
apologies.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I will
Okay.
second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then for the approval of minutes of June 25th.
I happen to have something on that.
Okay.
Yeah, on the top of page 8, where it has my explanation for my vote. It says applicants have worked, it should say in partnership. It just has the letter N.
Oh, okay.
Just a small thing.
Any other corrections? Seeing none, do we have a motion for approval of these minutes, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 25th, 2020 meeting.
And do we have a support?
I'll support.
Thank you.
That's,
Thank you, Cliff. Our first case is Andre B. Newman, 267 Lakeview Drive, also identified as 12-26-179-029. The applicant requests to construct an addition on an existing 1-story house requiring a variance from Article 3.1.6.E R1D, single family residential front yard setback, and Article 7.28A, repairs and maintenance. And it's required due to the value of the improvements and increase in cubic content on a non-conforming structure. And with that, can we have our staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, board members. Your first case tonight was tabled at the June 25th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. At that time, the applicant had requested a variance to construct a two-story addition that would have encroached into the front yard setback. The property is at 267 Lakeview Drive. It's just over 4/10 of an acre in size and zoned R1D, which is single family. The existing house on the property is almost 800 square feet in size. It uses a private well for water and private septic system for sanitation. Again, the request last time was a two-story addition. It would have encroached 19.6 feet into the 30-foot front yard setback. Part of the reason it was tabled was because the value of improvements to a non-conforming structure is the ordinance sets a limit at 50% of the state equalized value in a 12-month period. So the applicant had not provided that on their building permit application. Since the last meeting, the applicant's done their homework. They got some estimates from a builder, put together an estimated cost for the project, and it came back at $100,000. So that was more in line with what our staff was thinking, what our building official here at the township, he concurred that that was a realistic estimate if they did some of the work themselves, which the applicant said they planned on. So based on that new information, this is being heard, both the variance for the front yard setback and the variance for the value. This is a new public, or there will be a new public hearing tonight. Both cases or requests were advertised. So again, the variance from the front yard setback is the same as last time, 19.6 feet. And so that would result in a 10.4 foot variance from the front setback line. The existing house now is non-conforming. It doesn't meet the front yard setback. Currently, it's at 8 feet. So this addition wouldn't go beyond what's there now. And then with the value, the SEV of the structure is $62,000 and $62,260. So 50% of that would be $31,130. They're at $100,000, $68,870 over the allowed value of improvements for a 12-month period. So that would be 321% over the value. They are here. The applicants are present tonight, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Justin. Does anybody have questions of staff? If not, then will the proponent explain to us once again, please, your request?
So yeah, basically, our house is just too small for us. So we've got two kids, 7th grade, 9th grade, of opposite sex, sharing the same bedroom. And so the only option for us to make our house any bigger was to take the house over to the garage. We can't go back because the septic field's there. And so just connecting the two structures together was the best option for us to go. The addition's gonna actually be 2 feet farther from the property line than the existing house. So like Justin just said, we're not getting any closer, we're actually getting a little bit further. But we didn't really have any other options. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
And any questions of the proponent? Well, I have a question for Mike then. Mike, last month when this came up, you spoke of the possibility of the Township Planning Department or Planning Commission investigating this section 7.28, which deals with the non-conforming structures exceeding the 50%. I'll be very honest, I'm not comfortable with the 321% excessive amount. And I realize that the reasoning is because of the expense of new construction. I want to know your feelings on this again, Mike. Do you mind?
Not at all. Thank you very much for asking. And since that time, I have talked to the planning department. There are a number of issues that we as a board have dealt with over the last several years that seem to be reoccurring. And the planning department is looking at those. We're dealing with a number of them tonight. And I think you'll remember, Madam Chairman, that many of the older structures that we're dealing with do in fact exceed the maximum amount of percent improvement. So we're running into that, especially the older homes. It is a desire of the planning department and of the township to cause for improvements to be done to parcels. But on these older homes, the only way to do that is to actually tear the house down in order to make them more conforming to the typically a setback variance. I believe the planning department is going to present that to the planning commission to have it looked at, but I believe it's their position as well that this is an onerous requirement. I believe they will still have something in there, but the 50% rule has been more of a detriment to improving the area than an improvement. So I don't have any problem at all, especially let's deal with it more in a specific circumstance, because we have to be very careful that we're not setting a precedent as we're doing the various approvals. In this particular case, their yard is larger than what it really needs to be. But in order to eliminate this request, they would actually have to rebuild the home back on their parcel to the east, which would mean they'd have to change their well, change their septic field. And so I do not have a personal problem with this. I believe that they have proposed an extremely logical way to expand their home. They cannot move in any other direction, as the applicant pointed out. And as I pointed out last month, I have a hard time believing they've lasted this long without having a connection to their garage. So I understand your concern. In this particular case, I don't see any alternative than to connect to expand their house this way. And I believe it'll be a great improvement to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate that input. Is there any other, go ahead.
Joe, I did bring this up at the last planning commission meeting, the 50% ordinance on the SCV, and some of the thoughts were that each case is looked at individually, and it is a reason, it gives us a way to keep very small, non-conforming, maybe sitting on top of the neighbor's house to completely redo without coming in front of the ZBA. So that was the thought, that each case has to stand on its own merit and be looked at.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up to the Planning Commission, Debbie. I appreciate that. If there is no additional questions for the proponent, I would like to open the public hearing. For the record, 27 letters were sent to everyone within 300 feet of this proposed variance. No letters received in favor, no letters received in opposition, no letters returned by United States mail. The public hearing is now open. Ken, please, Ken has reminded me, if you wish to speak, you must press *9 to speak. Ken, is there anybody that wishes to speak on this case?
We do have a resident online, but I'm not seeing them raising their hand at this time, Madam Chair.
All right.
And again, that feature is *9 if you would like to speak. No hands raised at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Board members, what's our pleasure? Any additional discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. Is the 19-point variance that's required, is that because the garage is being attached to the house? Or is it the actual addition that's being added requires that variance?
The actual addition being added requires that variance. When the house, if this addition is approved, it will connect the house with the detached garage. The garage is currently non-conforming. It doesn't meet the setback. Once it becomes part of the house, it's going to be subject to this principal structure setbacks instead of accessory structure setbacks. So that's part of the request, is considering the increase or expansion of a nonconformity. It's going to meet the side yard setback because, remember, accessory buildings have a 5-foot side yard setback. In R1D, the minimum side yard setback for a principal building is 10 feet. So they'll still meet the 10 feet, which is good. They're just not going to meet the front setback. But the garage is set back farther from the road or the front lot line than the addition. So the addition is what's requiring the variance.
I see. Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mike.
I would like to just point out something before a motion is made, that in this particular case, although the applicant didn't point out specifically, if you take a look at the site plan itself, and the architectural plans are very complete and they're okay, but what tells the story is really the site plan itself. And it's an extremely odd right-of-way for that roadway. It virtually jogs right in front of the applicant's house and moves right towards their house for no apparent reason, except there might have been in the olden days, there might have been a need for or a desire for a turnaround in front of their house. It is not constructed that way, and the road goes across the front of their house. And in reality, the house sits back far enough that if the right-of-way had been a more normal right-of-way, the resultant request for a variance, there'd still be a request there, but the resultant variance would have been substantially less than what it is now. So I find this an extremely unique circumstance, and it's a non-self-imposed hardship. And I just kind of wanted to bring that up to my colleagues on the board.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate that. Would anybody like to entertain a motion?
Yeah, I think I'll make a motion.
Thanks.
I move to approve the variances requested by Andre Newman from Article 3.1.6.e of the zoning ordinance for parcel number 12-26-179-029, identified as 267 Lakeview Drive, in order to construct an addition that would encroach 19.6 feet into the required front yard setback and exceed the allowed value of improvements to a non-conforming structure by 321%. This approval will have the following conditions. The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the White Lake Township Building Department.
And is there a support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Debbie. May we have a roll call, please, Hannah?
Yes. So mute. Oh, here I am. Okay. Powell,
Yes, I believe that there is a non-self-imposed hardship in this case due to an inconsistent right-of-way line. And the improvement will not only improve the resident's living conditions, but the entire neighborhood.
Shellac,
You're muted
Yes,
there.
yep. Yes, for the reasons stated, and because I appreciate, just as always, when people work with the township to try to help get these things resolved, and I believe they've done that in good faith.
Heber,
Yes, because I believe it does not increase the existing nonconformity. of the site. So I do support it.
DeHart,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Spencer,
Yes, for the reasons stated. And I thank Mike for the excellent explanation, and you, Debbie, for getting the planning commission hopefully involved in the excessiveness in the non-conforming situations. Mr. Newman, you have your variance. You have 6 months in which to pull a permit. Please give our secretary 24 to 48 hours to get you a rough draft copy of the minutes. You'll have to call and make an appointment to come in and talk to the planning department and then to the building department. Good luck.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much.
Good night.
Night.
Appreciate it.
I would just say that we have, 4 cases tonight. It might be a little bit of a stretch to get the minutes in 24 to 48 hours. So I would say maybe for any applicants that are listening, next Wednesday will be a good day to get minutes.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I should have asked earlier.
All right, sorry.
Okay, next case is Gary Fulkerson, 10185 Elizabeth Lake Road, also identified as 1227-227-013. The applicant requests to construct an addition requiring a variance from Article 3.1.5.e R1C, single-family residential side yard setback, in Article 7.28A. Repairs and maintenance is required due to the value of improvements and increase in cubic content on a non-conforming structure. And with that, can we have staff report, please?
So the applicant is Mr. Fulkerson, and he's proposing to construct an addition to a single-family house at 10185 Elizabeth Lake Road. This property is 6/10 of an acre in size. It is zoned R1C, which is a single-family zoning district. The existing house on the property is just over 2,000 square feet in size and utilizes a private well for water and a private septic system for sanitation. Back in 2012, the Zoning Board of Appeals approved variances to allow an addition and an attached garage to be constructed on the property. There were 4 variances granted at that time, and they're listed in your staff report. A 20-foot variance from the required lot width. So in R1C, 100 feet of lot width is required at the street line. This property has 80 feet as platted, so that variance was granted. The variance was granted for 13 feet for the front yard setback for the garage addition, and a 4.15 foot variance from the west side yard setback was granted for the addition. And remember, the R1C and actually most of our zoning districts have a minimum side yard setback, but also a total combined setback for the 2 sides. So in R1C, it's 20 feet, and the applicant received a 3.9 foot variance to allow, to get them up to their 20-foot contribution to a total combined 20 feet. So today, the applicant is back with another addition. This would be 690 square feet in size. It would encroach 4.15 feet into that 10-foot side yard setback. And again, while expanding the nonconformity, this addition would maintain that 5.85 foot setback that was approved by the board in 2012. The other part of the request is this house is non-conforming. We have to look at the value of improvements. 50% of the state equalized value for a non-conforming structure in a 12-month period. This structure at $136,670 in SEV, maximum extent of improvements is $68,335, and the value of the project is $75,000. So they're seeking a variance to exceed the allowed value of improvements by it's just like $6,600. I think the staff report says $6,665. So that's 110%. So again, a 4.15 foot variance resulting in a 5.85 foot side yard setback, variance for the value of improvements. The applicants are present tonight, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff?
Hi, I guess I have one,
Yes.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, Mike.
Justin, do you have any idea, and I apologize, I might have missed it. Do you have any idea at all as to the distance behind the home as to where the septic field is?
I do not. That was not provided on the plan.
All right, because the septic field is certainly behind the home, but I can't tell. And so maybe the applicant will have some idea of that, and he can share that with us during his presentation.
Yes, I know that I had to keep it 10 feet from the septic. We're not going to be actually be going near the septic field, the septic tank though. We'll be 10 feet from that. And that sandwiches us exactly in between our septic tank and the variance that we're asking for. But it can't be any bigger than it is.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? If not, then the proponent, Gary, is free to explain away, please.
All right. Well, like was mentioned before, we already had one variance because of the side setback to the west. We have less than 6 feet to the property line. Our house was built along with our neighbor's house who shares that setback by the same person. These were actually houses set up as cottages. So they created all kinds of problems. So we've been trying to stay within the rules and also be able to know that, for instance, if there had to be a truck that had to get in our backyard, that our neighbor has a driveway on the property line that follows our fence. And our fence is also made so that we can take it out if we need to. It's actually put into galvanized pockets that we can unbolt and take the fence out. So if we had any utility issues or anything like that, trucks can get back there with no issue. And the house should not encroach into any of that space that they need to get back into. Other than that, we're trying to stay within all the parameters like the septic tank distance. And we only have a 1-bedroom house. It's an empty nester. And what we're doing is making a bigger bedroom. So it's going to be really an ensuite with a larger bathroom too. So, because we're trying to pay more taxes. That's the goal.
The neighborhood.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have seen our house. We're the one with the metal roof on Elizabeth Lake Road, just down the street from Spraders. So, so we're trying to keep it up, and it looks like neighbors are picking up the pace now. So it's working.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions of the proponent?
So I guess my question, and I was not on the board when the first variance was granted. This variance for the side yard setback is in line with the same variance that was granted before, so that it's not going any farther into the side yard setback, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
In fact, we're actually 6 inches toward the house for that, because the way we want to join the wall to the existing house. So we notched it back six inches so that we can intersect the house properly.
Thank you.
No one has any additional questions at this time of the proponent. I'd like to open the public hearing. If you are wishing to speak on this, you must press *9 to speak. For the record, 24 letters were sent within 300 feet of the proposed variance request. No letters received in favor, no letters received in opposition, no letters returned by United States mail. Ken, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak?
I'm seeing no virtual hands raised at this time, Madam Chair.
Then in that case, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for any additional discussion, questions, or a motion.
I have a couple observations, Madam Chairman.
Yes, please, Mike.
One item, first of all, I want to commend the applicants. This house is a eye grabber as you go down the road, and I wanted to compliment the applicants. I was very impressed with the architecture and the details of the home. I believe this proposed addition will be an outstanding improvement to their living space inside the structure, and it certainly doesn't increase any setback over what's currently there. I did want to point out that I believe with a little more investigation, it's kind of immaterial depending on how the board votes, but I personally believe that there's been a miscalculation on the existing value of the property or of the house itself, being valued at what would it be, $136,000. I believe Madam or Ms. DeHart there would probably list it for a great deal more than that. So whether it's not been assessed recently or what, I can't believe that there's they're requesting over 50% of the assessed value of the property. So that being said, that normally wouldn't even be there, and it doesn't bother me, as I've stated in the past, but I believe there's a miscalculation in the mathematics there. But I wanted to point that out to my board members as well.
Mike, can I just chime, that 136 is the SEV, not the true cash value of the property.
Good point. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's just the structure itself is just so well maintained and so well constructed. I have a hard time believing that this addition is going to exceed the 50%. So, but that's something that we can deal with in a motion as well.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else?
No, I agree with you, Mike. The aesthetics of the home is really nice. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very pretty.
I will just add as well, my family and I probably drive by there at least once or twice a day, each direction, and just, on the way to Kroger. And yeah, we've commented many times on how well done it is.
Thank you.
We give tours all the time. So. I'm not kidding. People just stop in and just ask.
Where you raise the money to pay for those taxes, I know.
We do require masks, though.
That's good. That's good.
Board members, what's our pleasure?
Yeah, I'll do the motion.
Okay.
Pull up the wording in front of me here. Okay. I move to approve the variances requested by Gary Fulkerson from Article 3.1.5.e of the zoning ordinance for parcel 12-27-227-013, identified as 10185 Elizabeth Lake Road, in order to construct an addition that would encroach 4.15 feet into the required side yard setback and exceed the allowed value of improvements to a non-conforming structure by 110%. This approval will have the following conditions. The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the White Lake Township Department. And actually, I need to list the name of the articles above it as well. Do I not? Yes. This includes variance number 1, Article 3.1.5.e, subject side yard setbacks, standard of 10 feet, requested variance 4.15 feet, results of 5.85 feet. Variance number 2, Article 7.28.a, non-conforming structure, a standard of 50% or $68,335, requested variance of 110%. The result is $6,665 over allowed improvements.
And do we have a support?
I'll support.
Thank you. May we have
As just a comment, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Even though the planning department does their math down to the penny almost. I'll be very surprised if the dollar amount that Nick put in the motion is right on the money. So, but it was just a comment.
Yeah.
Okay, may we have a roll call, please, Hannah?
DeHart,
Yes, I believe because they are not exceeding the setback that already exists on the property and that it will be an improvement to the structure.
Shellac,
Yes, for the reasons stated, and because it'll be an improvement to the neighborhood.
Howell,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Seaver,
Yes, because it'll be consistent with the variance that was granted in 2012. And I completely agree with Member Powell that the house is just a very nice looking structure and very well maintained.
Spencer,
Yes, I was on the board in 2012, and I agreed back then, and I agree also. This is an improvement, not only for the neighborhood, but for a very nice couple as well. With that, you
Thank
have
you.
your motion. You have 6 months in which to pull the permit. Please give staff until next Wednesday for a rough draft copy of the minutes, and then you'll need to call the township to make an appointment to come in and talk to the building department. And good luck with it.
Thank you.
so much.
Yes.
You're welcome. Our next case is Jim Wolfenbarger, 2355 Ridge Road. The applicant requests to demolish the existing house and detached garage and construct a new house with an attached garage requiring a variance from Article 3.1.6.E R1D, single family residential side yard setback. And with that, may we have staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So your third case tonight is a request from Mr. Wolfenbarger to construct a new house at 2355 Ridge Road. This property is over 3/10 of an acre in size and zoned R1D. There's an existing house on the property. It's about 1,100 square feet in size. It would be demolished as part of the project. This case was before the ZBA in 2019. The applicant received a variance to allow the new construction to encroach 3 feet into the north side yard setback. The minimum setback in R1D is 10 feet on the side. At that time, a variance was also granted for the lot width. So a 40-foot variance was granted. A minimum of 80 feet is required in R1D. Variances are valid for a period of 6 months, and during that time, the applicants have to obtain the building permit and start working on the project, and work on the project or work on whatever the variance is associated with. So the permit was not pulled during that time and it expired. So the applicant is back with the same request. The only difference in that previous request, they had a covered porch on the south side of the house, and that we treat covered porches as a part of the principal structure, so they can't encroach into the setback like an uncovered deck. So that variance was denied by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the only change from the last time is that deck or porch on the south side of the house will be uncovered, so they do not need a variance for that. So the only thing that's being considered tonight is the 3-foot variance on the north side lot line. There were 4 conditions approved with the last request in 2019. They're listed in your staff report again. I'll just read through them real quickly. The applicant was required to obtain approval from the County Health Division prior to issuance of a township building permit, receiving all necessary permits from the township. The new house setback would have to be 45 feet from the traverse line instead of the lake to increase that to allow for better visibility for the neighbors. And then any mechanical units would have had to have been placed on the south side of the house. So you don't have to approve this request with the same conditions if you're so inclined, but I did include them. That's up for your consideration tonight. The applicant is here by phone, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Justin, I have a question. You said that the last time we went over this, there was a lot width variance also because it does not meet the lot width. Why isn't that now?
Because that variance was associated with the land and it wasn't associated with a specific development. So the variance for the land has not, that was granted, the land hasn't changed. So that's okay, that does not need to be reapproved. The variance that was approved for the setback, they had to commence construction within 6 months. So that's why that one expired.
So only construction variances expire in 6
Right,
months.
so if you grant a variance for lot area or lot width, and usually we never send a property to the zoning board of appeals for just lot area and lot width unless they're coming with a project. So we wouldn't, if we get a building permit to construct an, you know, a deck on a house and the deck meets all the criteria of the zoning, we don't send them to the ZBA if the lot's too narrow. But
Okay.
if the deck encroached into the setback, then we'd say, okay, well, you have to go to the ZBA, and while you're there, you need to get a variance for the lot area or the lot width.
Thank you.
Yep.
Justin, I have a question for you. There is a boathouse on this property that is non-conforming. And if memory serves me correctly, the part of the boathouse may actually be on either over or on a neighbor's piece of property.
That's what it appears. It's not on the plot plan that was submitted by the applicant. Based on aerial photos and visiting the site, it does appear that it's actually overhanging the property line. So that is a current condition on the site.
Okay, so knowing that ahead of time, and since this structure is going to be constructed completely brand new, would we in any way be in violation if we, in granting a variance, made a decision that the boathouse or shed, whatever it is, become compliant with our ordinances? Would that be something we could do?
Absolutely. So the zoning board of appeals has the authority to place any condition that you want on your variance approval if it's associated with this property. So, and I think in this case, because the applicant would be demolishing the existing house, they would be constructing brand new, it would be, if the board was so inclined, an opportunity to take a non-conforming structure and bring it into compliance.
Thank you. That was my understanding, but I wanted clarification.
Could
Or any
I
other-
could I ask another question of staff, please?
Sure.
Justin, along that same line that the chairperson asked, does the ordinance allow any structure such as what's there now between the house and the lake, or would that a decision like that require the removal of that structure totally from along the lake?
So the current ordinance doesn't allow for boathouses. So any structure between the house and the lake would have to meet a 25-foot setback from the lake, and a 5-foot setback from the side lot line.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
Well, since they're going to demolish the structure that's there, the house, then we're starting over with new construction. I guess I'm a little concerned then about the boathouse, because if it was a vacant lot, you could not install a boathouse. So we're keeping a non-conforming with a new construction.
I think it would be, an opportunity for the board to bring a non-conforming structure into compliance. It's up to you whether or not you want to. I mean, if this was an existing house and they were coming along for an addition, and that's one thing. They're not starting from scratch. The fact, I just think the scope of work may, I think it would be a a wise move to consider bringing that building into compliance.
If I could ask Justin, while we're discussing this and the chairperson is going to ask for a presentation and then open to the public, if you could pull up Oakland Gateway and just do a quick analysis and give us some idea, and maybe you can even share your screen when it comes up and let us know what's going on along that shoreline. Is that a common type structure or is that of the ordinary along that shoreline?
Sure, I'll work on that right
Thank
now.
you.
Thank you. If there are no more questions for staff, then I understand Jim is available by phone. Jim, if you'd like to explain your case, we would like to hear it, please.
I will unmute your line now, Mr. Wolfenberger. Go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right. You know, that structure, it's a common structure along that shoreline. There's multiple boathouses along there. And really, the only thing that's encroaching the property line there's a deck on top, and it's kind of cantilevered way over. So there's a cantilever deck that sets up top, and that does, one corner of that does encroach over the property line. So by removing the top of the deck, it would put the structure back within its own property. I couldn't tell you exactly. I'm thinking the setback from the structure itself is like 3 to 5 feet from the property line, but the deck that's on top of it, the corner of the deck, it does appear to hang over the property line a touch. I mean, not like 5 feet or anything, but it looks like it might have it like 6 inches to a foot over, hanging over. But that structure is probably cantilevered 5 feet over the building itself. So if that was removed and we put the deck just on top of the structure, it would be within its, I think it'd be really close to being within its setbacks. And that structure, actually, it's part of the hillside. There's a big hill there. Once that gets removed, the retaining that hillside is going to be another issue, because it's kind of well established there, and I think we'd have a hard time rebuilding that hillside from erosion and everything else. But it'd be a shame to lose the boathouse. I mean, but really, I mean, it depends on how everybody feels about it. But I think once the deck is gone, I think it would satisfy everybody's needs. But I guess it's up to you guys. I mean, I'll do what we got to do.
I seem to recall asking a lot of questions about this one, because I think we maybe have heard this. I mean, I remember going back through the minutes to be refreshed, but we've kind of talked a few times about this. But one of the questions I had in the past was about even the height of the cathedral ceiling. I might just be having trouble finding it on my paperwork here, but I'm just looking for kind of questions about view line. And
yeah,
is there a sense of that with the height, or how it will affect the neighbors?
Well, the height is going to be within the limits. We're not asking for a height variance. If you look to the home to the north that has a concern with it, they're way up on a hillside. I mean, they're going to look over the top of anything we put there. That grade goes up dramatically going that direction. So as far as they're concerned, as far as the overall height of the home, it shouldn't concern them at all.
Okay. I also seem to recall Mr. Powell asking about the location of an air conditioner or air conditioning unit last time.
Yes, and we did agree to put that on the other side of the home. Even though all the homes through there, they're very tight, everybody's dealing with a little something. I mean, it's not like we have acreage there. Mm-hmm. So everybody's dealing with air conditionings, and we're going to be dealing with his. So as far as where we can make it fit would be optimal for us, but if that's what it takes, I mean, we can move it to the other side, but then the other side neighbor is gonna be dealing with it. So, I mean, who do we make happy, you know, I mean, it's not like we could put it on a rooftop. Everybody's got AC units beside their house. But, I guess that's it.
Okay, I'm going to then, if no one has any other questions at this time for Jim, I'm going to open the public hearing for the record.
Sure.
23 owners within 300 feet were notified of this proposed variance. No letters received in favor, no letters received in opposition, no letters returned by United States mail. Ken, do we have anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on this?
We do, and just a reminder to the callers online, if you'd like to speak, please press *9 on your keypad, and we will call on you. So the caller with the last 4 digits of their phone number, 9501, we will unmute your line. Again, caller, please state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller.
Hello, this is Mike Lubaka, and I'm here with my wife, Beth Hanlon, and our address is 2365 Ridge Road. We're the house to the north.
Thank you. And do you want to give us your thoughts on this, please, sir?
Sure. So we actually did send a letter this time in opposition to the variance that we delivered it last Thursday, and we were told it was received. So hopefully the board members saw that letter.
Yes, we all received one in our packet, and it is in the file.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple comments on the air conditioner. So the south side of the lot, that is the back side of that neighbor's house, and that is where their air conditioners are located today, versus on our house to the north is the front door of our house, and our air conditioning is on the north side of our lot, which is where our north neighbor's air conditioning is. So that's one of the main reasons to put the air conditioners together where the other neighbors are. And to answer the question about height of the house, the proposed structure is a walkout basement 2-story house, and on our side of the lot, the actual entire basement is currently exposed. So on our lot line, it looks like a 3-story tall house, because we get the walkout basement plus 2 stories above that. And we've got a couple of reasons we object to the 3-foot variance on the north side. One is because of the height of the house and closeness. It does obstruct our view. So moving the variance to the other side would help us a little bit. You know, it's only 3 feet, but it does make a difference in the view. And if you look at the lot plan, you can see it's a very straight wall that just follows this proposed variance on our side, versus it's sort of a cutout shape on the south side. So it's just touching the 10-foot at a couple of points. It's not 10-foot across the entire house. And that is the backyard of that other neighbor, and the other neighbor's house is equal distance to the water, so their view is not affected, which they were in the meeting last year, and we're happy with that. I don't know if they're in this call. And probably the last concern we've got with being so close to the lot lines, we have a very, very large tree. It's a 100-plus-year-old tree, pretty close to the lot line where they're going to be constructing. And as Jim mentioned, it is a terraced lot. All of these lots, but we're really worried about that tree surviving, construction of demolition, landscaping, building a new house, and we're hoping every foot we can get away from the lot line is going to help that tree survive. I think those were the main points. And on the boathouse, we don't have an objection to the boathouse being where it is. It's just the overhanging of our property. Our main concern is the 7 foot from our lot line with this, what to us looks like a 3-story house.
And the 45 traverse they want to keep.
Yeah, and we also want to keep the 45 foot traverse, or from the traverse point, because that would be a huge block of our view, which was agreed last year by everybody.
Thank you very much. Ken, anybody else from the public that wishes to speak?
Again, to the callers online, if you press *9 on your keypad, we will unmute your line and allow you to make your comments. Seeing none at this point, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ken. I will close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for discussion, questions, or a motion.
I guess the only question I have is there room to split instead of doing 3 feet on one side, do 1.5 feet on each side with a variance? Is that something that has been thought of?
Jim, I believe she's asking you the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
was sitting here daydreaming.
No, it's, you can't see us and we can't see you.
Right, I forgot I was in the conversation. I guess a lot of that can be looked at. Right now on that side, we have space for the AC units. We take that space away, but I would look at anything. I mean, my original plan for this place has changed dramatically to try to accommodate everybody. I think my original application was we were going for a 5-foot setback on that side, and they showed concerns, my neighbors, and so I moved it over 2 feet. And then that traverse line, actually it was closer than the 45 feet. And I moved it back to try to accommodate them as far as how far towards the water the home went. So I moved the home back, and I did move it further away from their home by 2 feet. And we've drew these drawings several times. The homeowners have went back and forth to, giving up and just redoing the cottage. And then just recently they came back to me wanting to do a house again. So that's why the variance elapsed the first time, because they were just going to redo the cottage that's there. So now we're back at a new place. So I just don't know how much they're willing to try. I think 1.5 feet one way or the other there. I don't know if it really makes that much of a difference. I mean, would there be any way that I could keep that size of a home and give me a little leeway to go within that 1.5 feet? So when I stake out the home, once we get the original home, the home that's there, once we remove it, it would be easier for me to lay out where the new one would go that would satisfy and make everything work. Because I do know on that side, there is a hill that we're going to be dealing with. And the further away we can get it from that hill, it's going to be easier on us to put a new home there. So if you would just, is there any way we could do like a total of 17 feet, 7-foot minimal? And that would give me a little leeway. I could fudge it back and forth a little bit to make it, and I'll try to accommodate them with that extra 1.5 feet. If it doesn't work, I'll know that we at least have the 7 feet. So if we can have like a total of 17 foot for both sides, and the tightest would be 7 feet. And I'll try to make it work so it's 8.5 on each side. I mean, would that work? Is there any way we could work with that? Because if I did have a little leeway, it would help, and I could try to make it work. But I don't want to be set in stone. These lakefront lots on the hills, and the elevations changing from side to side, front to rear, it gets difficult sometimes, and they got to work. They got to work forever. They got to withstand the time. You don't want them collapsing and falling in, foundation weakening over a period of time. But yeah, I don't have a problem as far as moving it over a little bit. But if we could do a total of 17 and give me that little bit, that would be fantastic. And then I'll try to make it work.
Madam Chair, the previous caller has their hand raised. Just wanted to point that out.
Justin, the public hearing's closed, correct?
It is closed, correct.
I'm sorry. I wouldn't recognize them if they were here in the building. I can't recognize them because we have officially closed the public hearing.
I will just say, I appreciate the willingness to find a way to get some wiggle room. I just personally have a discomfort with approving ranges rather than specific. That's just my inclination.
Let me, if I could ask Justin a question, because I honestly don't know this. The advertisement was for a setback variance, and the intent was that setback was on the north side. So the applicant or the neighbor to the south had no concept that we might be granting a variance to the south, and I believe that would be inappropriate probably to allow a decrease in that setback.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, if that was something the zoning board of appeals wanted to consider, the applicant would need to come back after re-advertisement of the request.
You know, I live on the other side of that of that neighbor, and we can actually the homeowner of the home in question and myself were friends with that neighbor. We could get him to sign off on something if it would save time and energy. I don't think he would have a problem with a foot one way or the other, or a foot and a half one way or the other. I mean, that'd be one way to approach it. I know it's kind of unorthodox, but or we could stay with a 7 foot.
Yeah, let's discuss a number of we have a lot of things to discuss on this one, so let's wait and see if that's even an issue with us in our discussions.
Okay.
I just wondered if there was and you did say there was a hill that you might have an issue with. I was wondering if there was a reason you went with the 3 feet on the one side. It sounds like it was the topography of the lot.
That's kind of where their existing home is. Their existing home is pushed to the north, and their front entry is on the left side of their home, and their walkway is on the left side of their home. So they wanted their new place to be kind of a mimic of their existing. So they wanted their entry on that left side for some reason. So that's we're just kind of following suit of kind of what was there, and making the homeowners happy as well. It wasn't my choice to make it on that side. It's just how it is now and what they're used to.
Okay.
Maybe could the applicant let us know what the setback is on the current home? It was very hard to know that while we were out there. What is the existing setback back of the existing home?
It is, the existing home is 5 foot from the north side.
Okay.
And we were actually going to pull it 2 feet further away. There was concerns about a 3-story home. That the new home is going to have a full basement, but it's going to be totally underground. I mean, the ordinance is not going to let us expose, over a certain percentage of the basement wall. It's going to be completely in the ground. So the overall height, I mean, is not going to be an issue. But yeah, the setback on the right side is 5, and on the left side it's 10. So the new home is going to be 7 and 10.
Any other comments or questions?
I think we'll have a lot of discussion after you close the public hearing. So I'd be interested in hearing some of the board members discuss some things, and then I have some questions that we need to address, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could add, one of my concerns is that deck on the boathouse encroaching into the neighbor's property.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think that's an improvement that needs to be made to remove that encroachment.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be nice to give it a little more setback, meet some setback from the side yard line, but at least eliminate the encroachment.
I agree, Cliff. Mike, you got any comments?
Well, you know me well enough. You know I do.
How did I know that?
And we appreciate them. We do.
If maybe you guys can actually take some notes so that you can keep me on a straight path here. The applicant and especially the neighbor to the north brought up some extremely good points. And while I was out there, I did some evaluating. The applicant to the north had really a view of the lake that not many people have, because their windows in their second story are above the elevation of the roof of this house. And so they have had a view over top of this house. When you think about putting a second story on this property, unfortunately, you're going to eliminate that view out of their windows of the lake. At least the ones along their south wall there. I agree with the applicant. I don't believe the height of the building is an issue. If you recall, a couple meetings ago, we had a meeting. We had an applicant that was going to build a home, and they wanted a vast majority of the basement out of the ground, which defined it as a 3-story. In this particular case, the vast majority of the basement is backfilled. And so when you do that calculation, you're really only having a basement with a walkout. And that prompts another section of the ordinance, another phrase there that says a walkout, it will not be considered as a part of make it a 3-story, because it's just on that one side. And so I understand exactly where the neighbor's coming from, but in this particular case, the ordinance allows this home to be built at that elevation. I had since Cliff Sieber brought up the boathouse, I want to share that I grew up on Union Lake, and boathouses were really thought of as part of the history of the area. We kind of cherished those boathouses because they are not allowed by the DEQ or the Eagle anymore. So you really can't build boathouses, even if the township were to have allowed it. And it's boathouses are a little different than a shed, storage shed down on the lakeside, in which you have the setbacks and all that kind of thing. So I would consider it kind of a removal of history if we required them to actually remove the boathouse. Cliff's point is absolutely, I believe, right on. We got to pull that roof back without a doubt, make it less non-conforming than it is now. The applicant made another very good point about the boathouse. If you think about the back wall of that boathouse holding back a hill, the sheer fact by tearing that structure down, you're increasing the potential of erosion and probably damage the shoreline tremendously by doing that. You might even need an Eagle, a permit from the state of Michigan to disturb that much of the shoreline. So I personally, anyway, wouldn't necessarily be interested in removing that whole structure. I think that promotes additional problems. I was curious and don't know about that tree on the property line. You know, we all love trees. There's two issues to be thinking about there. Where is that tree located? Is it on the applicant's property or is it on the property to the north? Because that's a fairly big issue to me. If the tree is on the property to the north, then really special care has to take place to save that tree because it's really owned by the neighbor. And so we'd want to try to do something about that. On the downside, when you have a tree between two homes so close together, if that tree gets older and starts dying, both homes are sitting there with, unless you're really lucky and it falls between the homes, one of those two homes is going to be crushed if it happened to fall. And so that's an issue that the two homeowners probably ought to discuss before this new home is built. And I'm not necessarily thinking that we have preview over that, but I think that should be discussed by the homeowners. I'm pretty comfortable with the distance back from the lake. I think the applicant's done a very good job. The existing home sits way forward on the lot, and I don't believe it's possible even to pull this house all the way back to allow the neighbor to the north to have a full view, 180 view of the lake in the front of their home. It's set back quite a ways. Also, let's see, did I do everything I needed to? So I'm fairly comfortable with what's been stated. I believe there's two issues. I think the air conditioner does need to be around the south side of the house. And one other point, with these homes so close together, I'd really like the motion to include that we have downspouts and a storm sewer along both sides of the house. So that stormwater is taken down the hill at the lake. Two issues: you can't let water fall down that slope down both sides of the house because water always wins, and they'd be eroding that hillside all the way down. So from a technical perspective, they can pick up that house, drop it down low, carry it in pipes all the way down towards the bottom of the hill so the water doesn't run down the hill and erode that hill down. So that being said, those are just some of my impressions, and hopefully I didn't confuse the going anymore. Did Justin come up with an idea or any idea of where those other boathouses might be?
Sure. So I'm going to try to share my screen, so bear with me here. Let me know if you can see an aerial photo.
Yes.
Yep, perfect.
So it's tough because so ringed in red is the subject property, and it's hard to see. I can't zoom in any closer, but where my mouse is, that's the deck that's overhanging the boathouse. And remember that the aerial photo was shifted somewhat from the property line, so it's a little deceiving when you see an aerial photo and the red property lines. But the boathouse is, there's a significant grade change, as was mentioned, and it's tucked in the hill about where my mouse is. So you can't see it here. If you want to look up and down the shoreline, to the north, again, this is hard to see because of the trees and the hill. I don't know if this is maybe a boathouse down here. And so it looks like there might be one or two as you go farther north. I don't see any going south of the property. But it is hard to see, but it's right about where my mouse is, because there's the lift right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that helps any.
Thank you, Justin, very much. That being said, if anybody's ever been on a lake, it is very difficult to haul things up and down a hill. And you have all those lake apparatus, the skis and the life jackets and the boat equipment, and it's really nice to have that down near the lake. Very good.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. So what's our pleasure, board?
I think Mike should make the motion since.
Talk so much.
Is that a motion?
You earned the motion. You earned it.
I say go for it.
Well, if there's no other discussion, so I move to approve the variance request by Jim Wolfenberg Barger from Article 3.1.6E of the zoning ordinance for the parcel number 1218-151-024, identified as 2355 Ridge Road, in order to construct a new house that would encroach 3 feet into the required side yard setback. This approval will have the following stipulations. The number one, the applicant will obtain all necessary approvals from the Oakland County Health Division prior to the issuance of the building permit. The applicant will obtain all necessary permits from the White Lake Township Building Department. The new house deck from the lake shall be 45 feet from the traverse line. Any mechanical units shall be placed on the south side of the house. That at least a discussion be held with the neighbor to the north regarding the future of that existing tree on the property line. That the deck over top of the boathouse be cut back to no overhang off the north side of that boathouse, thus removing any encroachment and reducing the encroachment. That the, let's see, we already got the mechanical units, do we not?
Yes.
Did. Yep.
That gutters and downspouts and a storm line be placed down both sides of the lot and down the hill to eliminate any water problems between the homes and erosion of the hill down front. Did I miss anything, guys?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. That's my motion.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have a support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Cliff. Hannah, may we have a roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Powell,
Yes, I believe there's a hardship on this site in that the lot is so small and very tight. It's up on a hill. I believe the applicant has worked very hard to minimize and lessen the setback requirements and has worked with the neighbors on both sides. So I believe the practical difficulty has been proven, and I vote yes.
DeHart,
I vote yes for the reasons Mike stated and the fact that the existing home encroaches 5 feet into the setback currently, and the encroachment would be less than that.
Sieber,
Yes, and I think this is an improvement, certainly from the existing house, in that the current side yard setback is only 5 feet, and that will be improved to 7 feet. And I also encourage the applicant, as he indicated, that he may have discussions side yard setback, possibly shift it a little farther south to help out his neighbor. And although he would like for variance, maybe the township maybe will to help him out and waive fees if he were to do so.
Shellac,
I vote yes.
Spencer,
Yes, I too do see a hardship, and for all the other reasons that were stated this evening. With that, Jim, you have your variance. You have 6 months in which to pull the permit, which I'm sure you're very well aware of. Please let staff, sorry. Please let staff give them until Wednesday for a rough draft copy of the minutes. And you'll need to call the township and set up an appointment in order to come in and go over anything with planning and with the building department. With that, good luck, Jim.
All right, you guys. Sounds good. Well done, you guys. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
If I can just point out something to the board, this last applicant was a great example of why that percentage of improvements really worked. We got a new structure instead of adding on to a structure and tying the garage together. And I would have had a little bit of a hard time granting a variance like that when we can get a new structure on a lot like this. So I think it worked well on this case.
Yeah.
Yep. Very good job.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our next case is John Rossi, 10974 Hillway Drive, also known as 1234-351009. The applicant is requesting to construct an addition on an existing two-story house requiring a variance from Article 3.1.6.e R1D, single-family residential, side yard setbacks, and Article 7.28A, repairs and maintenance. It's required due to the value of improvements and increase in cubic content on a non-conforming structure. And with that, may we have staff report, please, Justin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property is almost a half acre in size. It's located at 10974 Hillway Drive. It's zoned R1D, single family residential. This house, or the existing house on the property, is just over 1,000 square feet in size. It utilizes a private well for water and a private septic system for sanitation. The applicant's proposing to construct a two-story addition on the west side of the house. There was an existing garage and breezeway that were removed to construct the addition. The house was built in 1920. It is non-conforming. It's only located 1.63 feet from the east property line. The ordinance says that non-conforming structures may not be enlarged or altered in a way which increases the non-conformity. This addition, again, it would be 2 stories, including the 800 square foot attached garage. The addition would be 3,087 square feet in size. At its closest point, it would encroach 1.24 feet into the 10-foot side yard setback on the west side of the property. So there would be an 8.76 foot setback on that west side. Again, we're back to the value. The ordinance limits, non-conforming improvements to 50% of the SEV. In this case, it's $141,000. So the maximum extent is $70,000. So this project is $200,000, which puts it 283% above the allowed value of improvements, which is $129,315. I know there's been a lot of discussion tonight on that section of the ordinance, and just to kind of piggyback off of what Mr. Powell said at the end of the last case, I think there's a merit to this section of the ordinance. I think it gives the township an opportunity to look at non-conforming structures, look at what's being proposed, and say, are we okay with perpetuating a non-conformity? Because the idea is that a non-conformity over time should be reduced or eliminated. So like the last property, the house is being completely demolished and we're getting something that's closer to compliance with the ordinance. So while every situation is different and each case can be considered independently on its own merits, I would be really hesitant to totally disregard this section of the ordinance, because I think it is a really important policy tool for the township to evaluate nonconformities. So I'm sorry to have gone off on a tangent there, but the applicant is present tonight and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Justin. Is there any questions of staff?
No, I'm hearing the value, the merit of that as well. I just a non-scientific observation. It does seem that we have more of these than we've had, and I'm guessing we're going to have many more going forward. It's just a practical, logistical thing. That's all.
Thank you, Nick. Any other questions of staff? If there are none, if Mr. Rossi is on board, he'd like to speak, please feel free to do so, sir.
Yes, thank you. So this house I just bought at the end of the year. Oops, come on.
Hey.
That's Charlotte.
Public comments aren't here yet. Yeah.
It's been in the family for 60 years.
Hey.
And Charlotte. So yeah, so the issue I have is basically the northwest corner of my addition is the area that's going, past that 10-foot setback. I was unaware of this 50% rule that, and there's no way I could have a 10-foot setback with the other corner being only a foot and a half from the property line. I'm utilizing as much as I can space for the garage because, living on a lake, you do need some storage, and that's going to be my area of storage will be the garage. I couldn't really move this addition closer to the road because I had a conversation with Matt Maynard, I believe it is, with the Oakland County. And he recommended not moving that towards the road due to my septic being on the roadside. So I kept it level or even with the front of the house. Even if I was to move this addition, I'd have to move it, probably 16 feet or so to even hit that 10-foot mark. So I don't know if you have the print they sent, but I have a bathroom up in that corner, and that's basically to service any lake usage. And the kitchen that was designed shows an L shape. Well, we're not going with an L shape. We're doing a straight kitchen. So taking away any width from this addition would really crunch in that that kitchen design. And plus I'm on a hill there, so trying to keep this addition as far as away from the road will limit the the angle of the road. I moved the bedrooms up over the or moving the bedrooms up over the garage in the addition area because of the size of the bedrooms. The existing house has a cathedral ceiling, and the bedrooms are narrow. It's surprising that a family of 6 actually grew up in this house. But so I had to keep, a foyer area for going to be moving the stairs into the foyer area and then have an approach or the area coming into the house, and had to move basically the stairs into the foyer area to access both the second floor of the existing and then the second floor of the addition where the bedrooms are getting moved to. And then the bedrooms, the existing so-called bedrooms will be just lofts. There'll be a loft area. So, that's pretty much what I have. The southwest end of the garage is, because of the shape of the lot, it's a pie-shaped lot. There's in the area of 14 foot to the property line. If my dad was correct, I would actually had that 10 foot, but my neighbor received an extra 16 inches according because of where the fence was that I removed. Ended up being per the survey, 16 inches on his property. And that would put that, we were actually in fear that the northeast corner of the existing house might be on the property next to that. So that's pretty much what I have on that.
Okay, thank you, John. Is there any questions of the proponent?
Yeah, I'd like to ask one, Mr. Rossi, that your addition is kind of angling a little bit toward the property line. And it looks like the encroachment is pretty much just that corner of the building. Is there any way, could you box that out or step that out or angle it or make any adjustment just on that corner?
Well, to get that full 10 foot, I would probably have to do at least 1/3 of the addition to do that.
Oh.
Can I make a comment? Yeah, I kind of had the same thought, and I try to remain neutral in this case, but we measure to the closest point of the addition. So if there's only that northwest corner that's encroaching the 10 feet, that would be the only part of the structure that has to be adjusted. If the rest of the addition met the 10-foot setback, then that wouldn't have to be reduced in width.
All right, thank you.
And to do that all the way down would really downsize the 2-car garage.
Right, but what I'm saying is that the addition wouldn't have to be moved in 1.24 feet, the entire length of the structure. It would only have to be moved in at that northwest corner where it's not 10 feet. As soon as the addition is 10 feet from the property line, that's okay. So it probably would just be a very small section that would have to be cut in or notched out, as Mr. Sieber said.
Yeah, and I kind of calculated, with those measurements of a little over 8 foot and 8 foot on the north side, 14 on the south side, that it would be pretty close to 1/3 of the addition, which would be about 17 foot. So that would, ballpark take me, in 5-6 foot into the garage. I think that might affect what I have going maybe upstairs for the bathroom. That's all I could see really with doing that. Maybe it might not even hit the bathroom.
Any other questions or comments, board members, before I open the public hearing up?
How many bedrooms are currently in the home?
3.
And you're eliminating all 3 of those and putting them into the addition?
Correct. Yeah, per my conversation with Matt, I was not able to add any bedrooms, but relocating them wasn't going to be a problem. The only thing I could really see with the, making that area of the addition smaller would affect the length of the kitchen.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Mike.
I think Cliff might have kind of been on the right track, but maybe we can just reduce the setback variance a little bit. If the angle of the home were taken back to the common wall between the garage and the house, and that section of the wall there in the bedroom upstairs and in the bathroom downstairs. If it were angled a little bit from that point on, we'd be greatly reducing the setback variance on that side. May not be eliminating it because, as Mr. Rossi said, he'd have to go back into the garage further to eliminate the variance altogether. So that's something that we can certainly discuss. I had a question for you, Mr. Rossi. In the existing house, will you be removing the floor between the living space and the bedrooms upstairs and creating that as one big room?
No,
All right.
none of the floors get touched at all.
You're just removing the walls upstairs to create a big loft area.
Yeah, actually, yeah, and they're non-supporting walls, so it'll be basically an area of those bedrooms to just have a railing to give the the loft look effect.
All right. The reason why I ask that is, and I'm going to touch on maybe the 2,000-pound elephant in the room that we haven't touched on yet. If you move that easterly wall in, so the easterly wall would have to be moved in, and a new exterior wall would have to be placed. I'm just toying with, and I certainly haven't looked at the structure or anything. That would eliminate the setback, the existing setback problem on the east side. And the reason why I'm bringing that up at all, Mr. Rossi, is the variance number 2 that's needed. We've been wrestling with that for a long time, not just here, but many lots. And so the intent on the second part of the variance is to ask for a variance for the non-conforming structure, the percentage of increase construction cost. If we could eliminate some, if not all, of the setback problem on the east side of the lot, this section actually goes away, and we don't have to even consider the increase in SEV. And so I'm wrestling with that because I know the board, we're going to wrestle with it as well. Could you give me just some idea of the history of this home and what this existing structure means to you?
Well, I grew up in this home. My parents, my dad bought the house in 1958 in September. I was conceived that night, born 9 months later. I grew up in this house with my family. In 2010, when my parents passed, my sister bought the house, and then she recently passed. So, yeah, it's been a fun project, pretty emotional, but the location, I actually own the house next door. I grew up in this house, but then when I was 26, my father helped me next door with the house, and that's where I've been since in White Lake Township. So when this project came along, my nephew wasn't able to, he was going to put it up for sale, and I decided, I'd make an offer on it. And before that, I kind of talked to Matt Maynard with environmental, and with my house, I wasn't able to without the sewers, and that's something else I'm working on with the township, is getting sewers brought in. Without the sewers, I couldn't do an addition that we wanted on my current house at 10964. So that kind of opened up the door for this project. So I know when I did the work on my house, the setbacks were back then 5 foot, but and now I know they're 10 foot. And there's comes the issue of why I need the variance. But yeah, this is going to be my forever home at age 60. So yeah, it's definitely a sentimental project, and that that really doesn't, I'm sure doesn't change your guys' thought in my what I'm after with the variance. And I guess whatever I need to do to build this, that's what I'll do. I really didn't understand what you said about doing work on the east wall. The intent here with this addition is not to it's going to have its own foundation, so there'll be its own foundation on that east wall. That way I don't have to I may have to do a little underpinning to tie in that east wall footing for this addition, but yeah, I wasn't sure what you were talking about bringing in the east wall.
You were just talking about the west wall, Mr. Rossi. I was talking about the east wall against your other house.
Oh, okay. Okay. Where the 1.5 foot from the lot line?
Yes. Okay. Could you tell me what is the setback between what is the setback from the house you're living in right now, the house you own to the east, to its property line? Do you have any idea what that setback is?
On that east side?
On the west side of your other lot?
I'm probably 10, the exact number, I'm kind of would be guessing it. I'm in the area probably 10, 12 feet.
Okay, thank you.
To that corner of the house. I know the house next to me, where this corner is in question of being, to the property line, I believe the survey showed him at a little over 13 feet, 13 and a half feet.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're welcome, Mike. Any other questions or comments before I open the public hearing? If not, I will open the public hearing. 26 owner occupants within 300 feet were notified of the proposed variance request. No letters received in favor, no letters received in opposition, no letters returned by United States Mail. Ken, do we have anybody in the audience on this case?
We do have a caller on the line. Caller, if you'd like to speak, please press *9 on your keypad and we will be alerted that you would like to speak. They are wishing to speak. I will unmute your line now, caller. Again, please state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller.
Hi there. My name is Derek Gismondi. I'm here with my wife, Jackie. We are here with our 2 small children, so we apologize for any noises you may hear. We're 10994 Hillway. We are the house to the west of John, the most affected. All we would like to say is that we have 0 objections to John's project.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else, Ken?
No one at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. I will then close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comments, questions, or a motion.
Did you say or emotion?
I did. You were paying attention.
Wow.
I did just want to make one comment if I can, Madam Chair.
Yes.
The ordinance does require 20 feet combined for side yard setbacks. In this case, because the house is 1.63 feet from that east property line, the zoning board of appeals doesn't have the authority to grant an 8-foot variance to get the total contribution up to 20 feet. So if the house was at least 5 feet away from that east side property line, there would be another variance to get the total up to 20. You know, they have it on the west side. You can see the neighbor's setback there, but they don't have it on the east side. So that's why you don't see that in your staff report, as you saw it in the case with Mr. Fulkerson. He had to get a variance to get the total contribution up to 20 feet, but he had the ability to do that because he was at least 5 feet from the side lot line. So I just wanted to note that for everyone's consideration.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Justin, what is that? And I heard you, I may have phased out on you a little bit. Did you say that this body doesn't have the legal right to grant the variance that's being requested?
You can grant what's being requested, but what I'm saying is that there's another portion to the side yard setback. In addition to a minimum of 10 feet on the side, there's a 20-foot total among both sides. And what I'm saying is that the ZBA, you have the authority on the west side to grant that because there's at least 5 feet from the side lot line. But on the east side, because there's not at least 5 feet from that east side lot line, you can't. So if at the northwest corner, there's 8.76 feet. That's what's shown. On the east side, that's 1.63. So that's about 12. So to get up to 20, they need an 8-foot variance. But that 8-foot variance would have to be given for the east side, not the west side. But because the east side is not more than 5 feet from the property line, you can't grant the second portion of the side yard setback variance. Does that make sense? I may have confused the issue.
It makes sense. Let me break it down into maybe what the end result would be. If the ZBA were to grant both variances being requested, are you saying that he cannot build the addition he's asking for?
So he can build the addition that he's asking for. And I guess I just wanted to note for the record that there's another portion of the setback that is, it's not before you tonight because you can't approve it. If they were working on the east portion of the house, they wouldn't be able to do that.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I confused everything.
That helps me out. Yes.
But, say if, we're talking about bringing, and I'm not suggesting you do this, so this is just for example's sake. If the zoning board of appeals decided, you know what, we want to try to get a non-conforming structure closer to compliance with the ordinance, and we're going to require that east side wall to be reconstructed at 5 feet from the east property line, then you could grant a variance to get the total contribution up to 20. Does that make sense?
It
I'm
does.
sorry if I confused the issue. I apologize.
No, thank you, Justin.
Well, then, so I have a question. The original structure is log. So if they want to do anything to that log, Justin, that's construction on that side.
Right. So they would not be able, for the rest of time that structure is standing, to do any work on that side of the property within 5 feet of the side lot line. That's just something that the applicant will need to know that, and say, God forbid, a fire, was started over there. I don't know, whatever happened. Maybe the furnace is over there and that caught on fire and they had to reconstruct the house. They would have to do it at least 5 feet from the lot line. And they would need a variance to do so.
So are you saying the siding, the log siding? Hey, I apologize. Let me move, guys. There's the dog on that.
And again, I'm not trying to confuse the issue, but I just think it would be, a problem if I didn't say, hey, there's there's this other section of the ordinance that, I just don't want to ignore it. I just wanted to bring it up and say, hey, it's in the ordinance. But I felt obligated to say something.
Sure. Yeah, so really he can maintain that existing wall, but he can't do any major construction on that east wall.
Correct.
So he can't change the siding either.
So he could, yes, he could maintain the siding, but if the problem is we get into that 50%, and that's why this is in the ordinance. If we're talking about the existing structure, 50%, and there's an opportunity to get at least 5 feet, that's why that's in the ordinance, because if there's 5 feet from one side lot line and then the neighbor to the east, even though it's the same property owner, if there's 5 feet there, minimum 10 feet is what our fire department wants for emergency access to get around these structures. When they need to lay hose in the event of a fire, they like a minimum of 10 feet. So if there's anything less than that, it's a life safety issue. And, we're looking at the health, safety, and welfare when we, that's our main priority here at the, planning and zoning. And that's why that minimum 5-foot setback on the side is in the ordinance.
So I'm going to tip my hand a little bit to my colleagues here and give you a little insight into the mind of a crazy old engineer. And Mr. Sieber will appreciate this. There's a reason why I was asking about a setback to the property to the east, because sometimes we think not outside the box, and there's the possibility that that property line could be moved to accommodate exactly what Justin was just talking about, getting that 5 feet minimum. And it kind of solves that problem. It certainly creates another problem, and then now the house to the east is within 5 feet or 5 feet from the property line instead of the code required 10 feet. And so it solves the problem, but it also creates another problem. And would have been nice if it had been a 20-foot setback on that side, then he could have solved the whole problem. But there isn't. And again, I just think outside the box sometimes.
Board members, Justin just came into the room and he's taken the survey. He's going to do some calculating for us, so give him a few minutes. Because it's a long walk from the boardroom to his office.
No, and I didn't print it out, so I couldn't do any scaling myself.
Mr. Rossi, what are your plans for the siding on the original home? Obviously, are you going to log side the addition, or are you going to try to reside the log home to match the addition?
Well, my first thought was to reuse what is on the west wall for the addition. But when you start getting into the paints that could be on these, the siding, it's actually a half, it's a half log. Okay. So it's not a full log, so it's a half log siding. So my intent is to, there's a product out there that is actually a foam fiberglass cement log. And it's a really slick product, low maintenance. And my intent is to do the whole house, including that east wall. So, it's all, very low maintenance, up to date look. To just leave the one wall with the old log, well, then it'll look like an old, part of an old house, I guess. So, yeah, that's my intent to, side the existing house along the addition.
Thank you. I keep looking at a picture I took. That's why I'm glancing down.
So sorry, to jump in real quick. I did scale the survey. The neighboring house to the east is at the closest point, 15 feet from the common property line. So a good solution would actually be to relocate this property line a few feet to the east to get them to a 5-foot setback. And that would, it'd still be non-conforming, but again, it's closer to compliance. It's getting to, a safer situation for both of the property owners. The current applicant might own both properties now, but they may be sold in the future to two different families. And that's something that, the ZBA could take into consideration now to make it safer for future owners.
Just make sure that we don't, if we happen to go down that road, that would not change the percent coverage or lot width or anything else that would bring it more in non-compliance in that respect, would it?
Right. So if we shift the property line on the subject site, we wouldn't have to worry about a lot width issue. It's got more than enough lot width. I'll check the neighboring lot.
Yeah, that's the one I was worried about to the east, right?
Let me look at that real quick.
While you're doing that, I wanted to thank the adjacent neighbor to the west for joining our meeting. That his representing his support for the project really made me feel a lot better about that west property line. So I wanted to thank him for being on this meeting.
So the neighboring lot to the east is just under 57 feet in width. So it is non-conforming by about 23 feet. So if you shifted the property line over 3 feet or 4 feet to make the current subject site, closer to compliance, this lot will get more non-conforming in width. But in coverage, it's not an issue based on the size for the existing structure.
Would we have the legal right to do that, Justin?
If the current applicant is indeed the owner of both parcels and consented to relocating the property line and acknowledged that this parcel to the east would become slightly conforming, then yes.
Okay, thank you.
Could you repeat? It's 57 feet currently. So if it was shifted 5 feet, is that what you're saying? It would be 53 feet?
So with the existing house on the subject site that we're talking about at 1.63 feet from the lot line, you would need to move it over 3.37 feet to get to 5. So you could, what I'm saying is if you shifted that lot line to the east, that property is 57 feet in width, you'd get down to about 54 feet in width over there, maybe 53, depending on where that final line came out. But, that's already non-conforming, so that doesn't concern me as much. The bigger issue, like Mr. Powell had mentioned, is that going to affect lot coverage or setbacks? Well, based on the size of the lot, the coverage is not an issue, and the setback is 15 feet from that common lot line now. So if you shifted it, the house would still be in compliance with the side yard setback of 10 feet.
So we're just the frontage.
Correct.
So is that something that can be done without going back to the ZBA when you ask for a lot split? Is because it's not.
Because they're not creating a new parcel, then yes. So that could be done through our assessing department. It's just we call it, it's a boundary line adjustment. There's no creation or division of a parcel. We're just adjusting the boundary.
Even though we're taking a non-conforming parcel width-wise and making it more non-conforming, it doesn't have to come back to the ZBA. Janine, the assessing department can just, obviously would have to have a survey and new legals drawn, but
Right, I would say no, because it's already non-conforming, and the applicant, in this situation, because he owns both parcels and he's acknowledging that he's making one parcel more compliant, I think it's okay to, if they were creating a different, if this was, you know, a division or a split, I would say yes, it'd have to go back to the ZBA, but because it's just a boundary line adjustment between two properties, the one applicant is the current owner, I don't think it's an issue.
So
The adva-
then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think the fire department, if we did something like that, now we've prevented the house to the east from being expanded this way, and it maintains that at least 10-foot corridor between the homes that the fire department's looking for. So we're actually improving the overall condition, even though we're kind of shifting variance or shifting nonconformities a little bit.
And, you know, Mr. Powell, you bring up a good point, you know, as, you know, the current applicant may not be the owner of both parcels in the future. Say someone
Right.
else buys this property to the east and they want to do an addition, which would be the right if they met the setback.
Right,
Then they're reducing the width between the two structures.
right.
So if we did, you know, the property line, or if the ZBA did the property line adjustment, then like you said, it prevents the owner of the current parcel from ever going closer to that east property line.
Right.
It kind of sets in stone that minimum 10 feet between structures. But again, that's totally up to the Zoning Board of Appeals. You're not obligated to do that tonight. That's totally up to you.
So if I understand you correctly, Justin, if we make that a condition of our motion, then assessing has absolutely no problem with processing it through?
Right, because it's a boundary line adjustment and not a split or a division, then that could just be done administratively.
Thank you.
And we've put the burden back in the applicant's court, because he doesn't have to do that. But quite frankly, it would be in his best interest to follow through and make that happen, if in fact we condition the approval on that.
Correct. So is there any other discussion? Does the proponent want to step back in, John, and give us your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is, boy, I didn't think the east side was going to be an issue.
None of us did. I'm glad Justin caught it though, because it would have been a bigger problem later, I think, in dealing with the second variance.
I think, John, too, and I think the board should take into consideration, you know, we're at a couple 100% over SEV, you know, the board could really say, you know what, you know, go in and demolish that house and you can build something in conformance with the ordinance. I mean, you're not going to do that, but I mean, it could be in your purview. But by addressing the situation in this manner, it could be, you know, a somewhat of a compromise, say, you know what, we will grant the variance for the value because we know we're making an improvement in another respect. So, and I'm not trying to, maybe I'm talking too much and I'll stop now.
No, but
You've been very helpful.
yes, and I'll clarify, because I don't know if John was present when we discussed earlier cases, but I had mentioned at the time that there's a possibility that this section of the ordinance does need to be looked at. Debbie has already talked to the planning commission. Planning department has already brought it up. And I am not in favor of a huge dollar improvement like this without some changes being made to our ordinance. So having said that,
I'd like to know what Mr. Sieber's thinking right now.
Well, you know, I think that the shape of this parcel, it's a pie shape, it's very narrow. And I think the amount of variance he's asking for on that west corner, it's just a small corner of the parcel building that encroaches. So I'm not at all uncomfortable with the variance request on that west corner of only such a small amount. But I certainly do see some merit, and that's one of the things I see if if he's got interest in doing that. I mean, it appears he's already had a survey done out there, and it would mean he'd have to ask his surveyor, Thomas Smith, to write a parcel split and submit it to the assessing department for approval. That would be go a long way to at least bring this forward to conformity. I think gesture if you were willing to do that. So if I wanted to hear something he would consider, or if he's just not interested in doing that.
Mr. Sieber, if I could interrupt for just a moment. Part of your audio feed cut out. I don't know if you can get a little closer to the, if you're on a Wi-Fi device or if you're near a window that might help the audio at this point.
Okay, is that any better?
We'll have to see. If you'd like to repeat your, if you'd like to repeat your last statement, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I was just saying that the gesture of contacting Mr. Rossi, contacting his survey and looking at legal description for the actually it's a reconfiguration. It's not a split, but a reconfiguration of those two lots and submitting an application to the assessing department would go a long way to bringing this lot into a much closer conformity with the ordinance, and certainly is offering some goodwill here. So that's why I was looking for Mr. Rossi's response, see if that's something he would be interested in.
Yeah, you were breaking up. I missed a lot of that. The advantage I do have with basically for me to do what I want to do with this house, I need more property on that east side, cut and dry, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So the advantage I do have with that being said is I do own the lot on the east side of 10964. So my concern is when I sell, if I was to take property from that lot, which is you take that from the lake now, and down at the lake it's only 25.5 feet wide. Well, if I take 3 feet up at the house, or 3.5 feet, then I'm down to 22 feet. So that really downsizes that lakefront lot. So
Mr. Rossi, if I can just break in, this is Mike Powell again. I think the intent, and I think your surveyor would probably do it a little differently. He would start at the lake and just shift the angle of that property line and not reduce the lake frontage at all. And then make sure that shift gives you 5 feet off of the corner of the existing house to where you don't reduce the lake frontage at all on that easterly lot.
Correct. And can I jump in, Mr. Powell? And, again, maybe this is, not what I should be doing, but if the setback wasn't an issue, we wouldn't be having the conversation. We'd only be talking about the value. And if I can just share my screen for a second and let me know when you see the survey of the property.
Stop.
So 10 feet would be about where my mouse is, that they would have, if they notched in the structure here and went in like just over a couple feet, they could meet the setback. So this distance here, they wouldn't have to go in any more than 10 feet. So they would be well away from the garage. And that may be something that the board could consider is, hey, let's get this notched in a little bit setback's not an issue, that's up to you, but about 10 feet is what you'd have to reduce the width at the northwest corner to make it meet the 10-foot setback on the side, if that makes sense. Sorry if I confused the issue.
You didn't. I'm with Mr. Sieber in that if the since the neighbor to the west really supports the project, I'm not nearly as concerned about that setback on the northwest corner there, especially if we take and resolve a much bigger issue on the east side. And I understand that's coming as a little surprise to Mr. Rossi, but I'll tell you what, this is probably this board is working very hard, I think, to solve an issue here. Have no idea what the vote's going to be, but we're discussing this out to where we're trying to. I think you pulled at our heartstrings a little bit on that old structure, and it means a lot to you. And we're trying to work maybe the ability for you to keep it.
I guess I agree, because the neighbor called in and it is only 1.24 feet on the corner. I guess my feeling is I'm not as concerned about that as the setback on the other side also. And the fact that you do own both properties and there is 15 feet there, I think that's an excellent way to solve this.
I'll tell you something. This discussion would be totally different from me, I believe, if Mr. Rossi did not own that property to the east. I think we'd be talking some major changes if he did not own that property.
I agree.
I think he's trying to speak, but is muted.
When you move property, thank you. When you move property like that, could I move it out just say north of the house towards the lake and then towards the road that distance? So I'm only taking a piece out instead of affecting that whole property. Or do you want to keep straight lines?
That's an assessing department question.
Right.
Most communities like their line straight from the road to the other end. Otherwise, you could end up with almost a scissor tooth type property lines. And so that's an issue for staff.
Yeah, we don't want a congressional district shape.
Yeah, the current land division ordinance does not allow for the creation of an irregular or flag-shaped lot.
Okay, thank you. But thank you for the question, though, Mr. Rossi. That's great. I'm inclined to go with this idea as well. I really am. Yeah, I think you're right. If this, if we weren't talking about a way to work with both properties and find a thing now, and you know, this just in the big picture, this is going to save headaches down the road.
Yeah, huge.
They would be in 30 years they'll be reading the minutes. Joe will still be chairing at that time, but you know, they'll be reading the minutes and they'll say, what were they thinking if they didn't take this opportunity? So yeah.
Let's put it this way.
In 30 years.
And I agree with you so much.
Like the idea of the moving of the line.
I agree with you so much that if the variance, if he weren't even here for variance, not like what we're asking for, and he weren't going to do anything at all, this solves the issue for the existing structure, just the way it is now even.
It does.
Exactly.
So it wasn't a crazy idea. Thank you.
Correct.
This is good.
So any other thoughts?
I would just say that when a motion is made, presuming that this line is part of it, then the question we want to ask is how to word essentially the pivoting of the line so that it would fall either, about 7.5, 7.5, or, how do we word it so it's pivoted well?
Got an answer, Justin?
Yeah, I would, yeah, I would word it in a way that says prior to issuance of a building permit for the project, the applicant shall reconfigure the common lot line on the east property line to create a minimum 5-foot setback from the northeast corner of the house to be approved by the assessing department.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get that, Hannah?
Hopefully she's not asleep.
I know.
What is going on with this board? They take so
No, I'm here. I'll get it. I have everything recorded too. We're good.
Okay, just in case we can't articulately phrase it properly. So are we ready for a motion?
So can I interrupt 1 second before?
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that.
So I have my survey guy that did the survey so am I asking for another survey for both lots then and in the line, or how do I approach that?
I'll follow up with you tomorrow, John. What we're going to need is a survey showing the two lots and the current legal descriptions, which are the platted lots, and the new legal descriptions for each parcel. So if you already have a surveyor who's got this work done, it should be relatively easy for him to do that. And we could get that done pretty quickly.
Tom Smith is a pro, John, and he will know exactly what to do.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
So which one of you are making the motion?
I think we're playing chicken on who wants to try to word this correctly.
No, I do it, but I can't.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I will move to approve the variance requests by Mr. John Rossi from Articles 3.1.6.e and 7.28.a of the zoning ordinance for parcel number 1234-351-009, identified as 10-974 Hillway Drive, in order to construct an addition that would encroach 1.24 feet into the required side yard setback and exceed the allowable value of improvements to a non-conforming structure by 283%. This approval will have the following conditions. The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the White Lake Township Building Department, and the applicant shall make application to the assessing department for a lot split and recombination to change the angle between his two parcels to create at least a 5-foot setback from the northeast corner of the house, the subject house, period.
Prior to issuance of a building permit.
Thank you. Prior to that, and obviously that's subject to, prior to the issuance of a building permit. Yes, thank you.
We have a support.
Support.
May we have a roll call, please?
DeHart,
Yes, I believe that this will actually make this situation of this non-conforming much better.
Powell,
I vote yes. I believe the configuration of the lot being a pie-shaped lot creates the hardship in doing any improvements to this parcel. And with the reconfiguration of the lot line, it greatly reduces the nonconformity of this lot and the current structure. And also the home being built in 1920 is part of the history of this area.
Black,
I vote yes, because it's an improvement to the neighborhood that does preserve the history. I also believe that this is I think this is a good example and opportunity of how we can use some foresight to not to respond to situations, but really to be thinking ahead as well. So yes, I vote yes.
Sieber,
I vote yes for the reasons stated.
Spencer,
Yes, I vote yes as well. And with the applicant willing to go ahead and take care of what could possibly have been a dangerous situation with the health, safety, and welfare, we'll now be able to know that the fire department will have adequate access to both parcels of property. Mr. Rossi, you have your variance. You have 6 months in which to pull the permit, or you'll be back in front of us again. Please give our staff until about Wednesday for a rough draft copy of the minutes. You will need that in order to take it to the building department. Planning will work with you as much as you need them to. I'm certain of that. And please make sure you call the office and set up an appointment before you come back to the building. Congratulations. Is there any other business, Justin?
No, I just thank you, everyone. That was a long meeting, but I think you thought about it and you got creative with that last case. So I apologize if I talk too much. I don't want to be active in your deliberations, but
all the information you can give us is welcomed.
Very helpful.
Thank you for your efforts. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem, sir. Thank you very much.
I have two things I'd like to state if I could. First of all, the more meetings we have, the more I'm impressed with this body. I just want to thank you colleagues of mine. This last go around really is thinking outside the box. And I've been before Zoning Board of Appeals for years. And I just give you guys all the respect I can because you care about the township and the residents. And I appreciate that. And I wanted to also thank Justin, not only for his professionalism, but I like the way he is wording the approvals, denials, and the options that he gives us, because he's adding a number of things into the approval to where we don't have to jump around and always read the box of variance requests. And so I appreciate that, Justin.
thanks, Mike. I wanted to make some changes, but I didn't want to make them too fast. So Sean said, if you want to make changes, do it slowly so you don't.
Well, and to double down on that last comment, I mean, even when I made that first motion, I kind of went up and doubled the motion because I had to shift my mind for a second and realize, hey, it's been presented so well. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Hey, and by the way, Nick, I already did 30 years on this board. What do you want? Another 30?
And I mean, and you know, I mean that as a total thing of respect. I was cracking up because we're reading that thing and it's got Rick on there and everybody, but you're still cheering.
I know, I'm just going strong. Justin,
I love
confirmed.
it. I love it.
Our meeting is August 27th. Justin?
Correct.
And assuming we're doing it on Zoom again?
It will be on Zoom. You have, I think, 3 or 4 cases again. So we're really loading up the agenda for you guys.
Oh, yay. Thanks. Ken, thank you very much for all your help tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken.
No problem. Thank you, guys. You're getting better at this every time, too.
Hey. Are we entertaining enough for you?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Sieber.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you, guys. Great job.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you all. Good night.
I feel like I
Good night.
learned something every meeting. I will say that.
Yes.
Did we adjourn?
Oh, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn.
And we have a support?
Cliff supported.
Thank you.
I support it.
If everybody made the motion, I think, does that make it unanimous?
All right. It's been a long night.
Have a good evening. Have a good
Good
evening.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.